Survey is going through the market and finding out and taking all the questionnaires, finding out or asking the questions and various other things you are going to do in this survey. And poorly constructed questions can result in what? Large kind of errors, as well as it can be invalidated the research data also. Two types of errors, and errors due to the bias in the selection and the sampling errors. So here comes the conclusion for the marketing research. And in order to analyze whether the research results are statistically, it's very important or it is very simple. Hi and a warm welcome to you all dear students. I, George Lime, Commerce Faculty, Department of Commerce, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. Dear students, today we are going to take up session 3 of Unit 6, that is related to marketing research. So this is the last unit as well as the last topic which we are going to cover in this particular session. So this is the end of the syllabus part of your marketing, principles of marketing. So the marketing research process, in the last session I was explaining to you about the first, second and third. Today we shall take up the fourth one. It says design data collection forms. The fourth important process in the marketing research is design data collection forms. So in the last class I was explaining to you about the collection of data like this, secondary data and primary data. So secondary data and primary data, how it is been collected and whether it is having commercial input or not, all that I was explaining to you. Now today let us see about this particular design data collection forms. Now it says once it has been decided to obtain the primary data, once the primary data they have decided to obtain that primary data, then the method of collection of this particular data is to be decided. So here there are two methods for which the data collection has to be undertaken. First one, we have the observational methods. Second is the survey methods. Now coming to the first one, are observational methods. Observation means watching, it is seeing, right? So as the name itself suggests, the data are collected through observation. As I told you, the name itself suggests that the observation means you are collecting the data through observation only. So here an observer, you will be observing and you will be recording all the data faithfully and surely, and you will be accurately doing that. So how you are going to collect this particular data? Through observation. So an observer will be there, that person will be watching and he will be observing the things and he will be collecting the data and he will be very faithful as well as he will be very accurate, right? Perfectly, he will be doing his work. And this may be suitable in case of some of the studies such as like it says, but it is not useful for observe attitudes. Now in some cases this kind of observation collection of data is very important and it may be very good aspect, right? And it will be very accurate, but for some other different cases it may not be the good one, or it may not be useful, because here it needs to observe the attitudes of the people, the opinions of the people, the motivation of the people and the other intangible state of mind. So all this you need to understand and you have to observe. So it is very difficult task on the observer to watch this and to take a correct proper decision regarding this and give a correct information. So that's what it says. In some cases it may be very suitable, but in other cases it may not be a suitable one. And also in this method the data collected is non-reactive. So it is whichever data you are going to collect, the data which has been collected through this observational method, it says it is a non-reactive. It is not a reactive, it is non-reactive, because they are not going to react according to you what you are asking. And it does not involve any kind of respondent. So there is no response from the other side. Only one person, he will be watching them, he will be seeing them. So that is what it happens in observation. So you will not get any kind of response and it is a non-reactive method. Second is the survey. Survey is going through the market and finding out and taking all the questionnaires, finding out or asking the questions and various other things you are going to do in this survey. So it's one of the most important common methods of collection data. So this is survey is one of the most important methods of collecting of data, right? From the, that is for the primary marketing research. That is what it says, and it can be again divided into as personal one. So this survey is one of the important and the most common method usually which has been undertaken in the marketing research process, right? And it says this surveys can be done through personal. That means the information which is being sought, that is the information which you get through this personal interviews. So how we are going to do this survey and what are the important aspects here? Here you are going to get, or you are going to take the interview, personal interview of the people. And a questionnaire is also been prepared where a lot of questions will be put and they need to answer them. So the question is prepared and administered to the respondent. So that will be given to the respondent, means the person to whom you are going to ask the question. And during the interview, that is the time of interview. And this is a detailed method of collecting information. So this particular personal interview is very, very important, and surely you will get lot of information, as well as it is getting in detail all the information about that particular thing. And now we'll see the telephonic interview. So this is telephonic calls where it says it is suitable for only limited information, and it is sought for only a specific period of time frame. And next is the mail. Under this mail, it says a questionnaire is sent out. So here under this mail survey, here the questionnaire has been prepared and it is been sent to the people, right? To the people to answer that, to get the response. But it says the timely response cannot be sought in this method. So you cannot get the response in that particular time period or within stipulated time period, because some may see it, some may not see it, and some may answer, some may not answer. So out of like 100 people you have sent a questionnaires in the mail, and only around 10 people have watched it or seen it, and only 2 may answer it. So it is not having a very good response. So that's what it says. It doesn't have any control over that particular kind of surveys, that is through mails. And all the people to whom this mail was sent, surely they may not have any response, right? So they may not give a response because they are busy in their own work. So they may not be able to give the answers or response. And sometimes what happens, because of all this negative aspects, because there are positive and the negative aspects, and most of this particular, we call this like mails or personal interview or telephonic calls. So through all the surveys, when you do it, then you may not get a good response for that individually when you do it. So what they do is, they will combine some 2 or 3 together and they will do the survey in order to get the response from the public. Now coming to the questionnaire, it says it is an important tool for gathering the primary data, because that is the primary data, because you are just going directly and asking the questions to the people, or putting the questions to the people and asking them to answer or response. So that is why it is an important primary collection of primary data or gathering of primary data. And poorly constructed questions can result in what? Large kind of errors, as well as it can be invalidated the research data also. So when you don't prepare the data, that is the questionnaire properly, then surely whatever the response you may, first of all, there is no response. And when you do it, or the questionnaire has been prepared in a bad manner or in a poorly manner, surely you may not get a good response from the public. And it says it is so a significant effort to be put into the questionnaire to make it proper design. So that's what they are saying, that you should be very much careful, be attentive and aware, and we should be, it is very important on point of a survey people or a surveyor who is doing it. So to prepare a very good questionnaire so that you get a good response. So you have to put lot of effort in that in order to get that particular questionnaire design properly. It has to be done. Now questionnaire should be tested and thoroughly prior to the conducting of survey. So once you prepare the questionnaire, it is not that immediately you send it through the mail or to any like direct interview or like personal interview where you are giving to give the answer and all. So it has to be prepared properly first, then you have to go through it thoroughly, then only you have to send it to the people for the response. Then determining sampling design and size. So it says the next step, that is in the research process, a sampling plan is very, very important part on aspect of a research process. Why? Because the marketing research has to decide, whether the sample survey or a census. So here the research process, they need to, that is the marketing researchers, they need to decide about whether to have a sample survey or to have a census. So in this, between this both, they need to select. Now definitely they say that sample survey has its own distinct merits. It has its own merits and advantages, right? So the population from which the sample has to be drawn has to be well defined. Now, if you are planning to have a sample, sample survey, then you need to decide from which from where you have to get it. So the population from which the sample survey can be done, that should be decided first, or it should be defined well. Now the broad choice is to made between the probability. So here the broad choice, you have a very broad choice, and it says it is to be made between the probability and the sampling, probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So here you need to decide about whether to go on for broader, that is sampling, or non-probability sampling, that is probability sampling or non-probability sampling. So the sample design is then chosen. Finally, out of these two, you are going to choose the best one depending upon the suitability and the availability. So depending upon the availability and suitability of this sampling survey, you are going to choose and of that particular sample frame. And the size of the sample chosen is based on what? The statistical methods. So here the size of that particular sample which has been chosen is been totally based on the statistical methods, and it says it is well defined, and also it reproduces the characteristics of that particular population. And if you see it, there is a practice that, however, this objective is never completely attained on account of occurrence of two types of errors, and errors due to the bias in the selection and the sampling errors. The next one is collection of data. So under the research process, we have the next important aspect related to the process of marketing research, that is collection of data. How we are going to collect the data? The next step here, to collect the data from which the research process has been spelled out. Right now, the interviewing and the supervision of the field work, they should be looking into it. So they should be looking at how you are going to collect the data. That is the supervisor as well as the interviewer, one who is doing this particular work. Now, one of the most difficult tasks, the hurdle here is interviewing for the marketing research. Why? Because many a times what happens, the respondents may not be part within of crucial information unless until it has been approached with the tact as well as the intelligence. So here the marketing research, it becomes very important, the difficult task for the interviewer, because many times what happens, the respondents, one who has to give the answer, may not part with the crucial information. So they don't think that it is very important on them that to take the info or to give the information unless until it has been approached with proper tactics as well as proper intelligence. Only then they may be able to answer. Otherwise, they may think it is of no use. Why we want to break their head on this? The supervision of the world, that is the supervision of the field work, is very, very important in order to ensure that there is the time as well as a proper completion of the field survey. So field survey has to be done within that stipulated time period, as well as it should be completed within that in that particular field survey. Now this is not carried out properly. Now if this particular survey is not done properly, then there is a result of an interview error which may determine to the marketing research. So if you are not going to do the survey work properly, or it is not carried out properly, then surely it says that particular results in the interviewer that he has not done his work correctly. Next was analyze and interpret the data. So whatever the data you got it, that should be analyzed and it should be informed, right? So that's what it says, analyzing and interpreting of data. The next step is to analyze the data that has been collected from the field survey. So whatever the data you have collected from the field survey, that should be brought and it should be analyzed first, then it should be interpreted. Right. Now the raw data has been transformed into the right format. Now you may get some questionnaires, you are given the questionnaires and you may have interviewed some people, right? And through that you may get some answers or response. Now that response, it is a raw response. Now you need to make it a very good, the right format. It has to be done in a right format, what the answers you got. So they might have given here and there some answers. So everything should be put together, analyze it properly and bring it to the right format. And first it has been edited so that errors can be corrected or omitted. So like while giving the answers, some of them might have left out some words or some sentences, or they might have given some wrong kind of information. So here before analyzing it or before editing, that is before interpreting it or informing to the main person, So you need to first edit it. So editing work has to be done in order to correct if there is any mistakes or any kind of errors occurs, or it can be sometimes which has to be omitted also, some of the information which is not good on part of that particular research work. Now the data is then coded. Once it is analyzed and everything is corrected, then it can be coded, and this procedure is converted the raw data into a number of numbers or symbols. Now once that particular data, everything is analyzed, then it will be coded, and this procedure, that is the data coding procedure, it is editing the raw data and it is converting them into numbers or into symbols. Now the code book is created to document how the data is to be coded, and finally the data is tabulated. So they bring everything together, it is tabulated to count the number of samples falling into various categories. Now simple tabulations count the occurrence of each variable independently of the other variables. So whatever the simple tabulations are there, surely that will count the occurrence of each variables independently. So surely each independently they are going to work on that particular tabulations and other variables which is there. Now cross tabulations is also called as contingency tables or cross tabs or threads two or more variables simultaneously. So this is all about how they are going to do the data work, how they are going to bring to the final stage the tabulation work. Cross tabulation is the most commonly utilized data analysis method in the marketing research, and it says many studies take the analysis of no further cross tabulation. Once the tabulation work is been done here, then the following analysis can be carried out, such as conjoint analysis. It means it is an analysis, a powerful technique for determining, that is to find out the consumer preferences for the product attributes. So this conjoint analysis is an analysis which is very a powerful technique. It is a powerful technique in order to find out, that is the consumer's preferences for that particular product or the product attributes, right? Then hypothesis testing, this is called the null hypothesis. It is an experiment of hypothesis that is independent variable, and which surely it has no effect on the dependent variable. And also it says this particular null hypothesis is expressed as HO, and this hypothesis surely is assumed to be true unless it is proven otherwise. Otherwise means false. And the alternative to the null hypothesis is a hypothesis that is independent variable, does not have any kind of effect, on the dependent variables, and this hypothesis is known as an alternative research work or an experimental hypothesis, and it is expressed as H1. So here you can see it is HO. The null hypothesis is expressed as HO, and here the experimental basis, that is the hypothesis known as alternative research or experimental hypothesis, is expressed in H1. Now once this analysis has been completed, both the term, that is on what you call co-joint analysis and hypothesis testing, then it makes the marketing research conclusion. So here comes the conclusion for the marketing research, and in order to analyze whether the research results are statistically, it's very important, or it is very simple by chance, then a test of statistical significance can be done. Next is preparing the research report. So finally, after doing all this tabulation work, everything, then coming to the last part where it says you need to prepare a very good research report depending upon the surveys we have done. Now all the research findings have to be compiled in a report and then be presented to the organization. So whatever the things, the survey you have done, the research work you have done from the beginning till now, all has to be put together, and whatever the findings you have found out, everything should be put together in the form of a report, and it should be presented to the organization of the company. Now the format of the marketing research report varies with the needs of the organization. So here the format of this particular marketing research report, it will be varying different. It will be differing from one company to another company according to the needs of that particular organization of the company. The report often contains the following sections, such as authorization letter for the research. First and foremost, you should get an authorization letter for doing the research. Then table of the content, list of illustrations. So this is how the report, final report has to be set up. Then executive summary, then research objectives, methodology which you have practiced, what is the result, what are the limitations, conclusions and recommendations, and appendix containing copies of questionnaires, etc. Now all this has to be put and it should be properly binded, and that should be in the form of a booklet. Now this report has to be written with an objective, coherence, and there should be clarity in the presentation of whatever the ideas which you use, and the use of charts and diagrams has to be taken into consideration. Now sometimes what happens, the study might throw up. Now this study might throw up one or more areas where future investigation is required. So once that particular research work is done and his report has been prepared and presented, so sometimes there may be some cases, in some cases or some areas where for further again that particular study has to be done on particular cases. So that finishes about the research process. Now coming to the market research in the small business and non-profit organizations. Now under this it says managers of the small business and non-profit organization often think that marketing research can be done only by the experts in the large companies or the organizations. So how the marketing research will take place in the small businesses and in a non-profit organization? See, some of the managers of the small business, they say that this research work can be undertaken only in the large business areas where they have a lot of large budgets. But however, many of the marketing research techniques discussed in this particular chapter, as we have seen here, they can also be used by the smaller organization or the small business also, right, in a lesser formal manner. It is not that it should be in a bigger manner. According to your condition, according to your limitation, according to your framework, you can do the market research in small business also. So thus small business and not-for-profit organization can also get a very good marketing insights, that is through proper observation, and informal surveys can be done by using the small and convenient samples. And finally, the summary is secondary data collection, observation, surveys and experiments can also be used in small business and non-profit organization more effectively by small organization with a small budget also. Even with small budget, you can do your research work. However, although these kind of informal research methods are very much less complex and less costly also, and it says they still must be conducted with utmost care. And managers here, they must think carefully about their objectives. What are their objectives? What are their duties, responsibilities regarding the research? Then formulate the questions or questionnaires in advance. Recognize whatever the biases introduced by small samples and less skilled researchers, and conduct all the research systematically. So it is also possible we can have the market research not only in the big organization but also in small business organization as well as in the non-profit organization, where they can do it in a smaller way, not in a bigger way, but in a smaller way they can do it. So students, so that is the end of this particular session, and we have come to the end of this session as well as of this particular unit and the total syllabus part also. Now let us see once again just the highlights of this in today's session, what you have understood. So I was telling about the fourth important research process, design data collection forms. Under that we have observational method, research method, then personal. Under surveys we have personal interviews, telephonic and mail, then determining sampling design and size, then data collection, analyzing and interpreting the data which has been collected, then conjoint analysis and hypothesis testing, preparing the research report. Under that we have authorization letter of research, table of contents, list of illustrations, executive summary, research objectives, methodology, result, limitations, conclusions and recommendation, and appendix containing copies of questionnaires, right? Then coming to the marketing research in small business and non-profit organization, as I told you. So even in small business and non-profit organization also, you can do the research work in a very simple and in a smaller scale also you can do according to your budget. So students, I hope that you have understood all this part which I have explained to you. That is the topics which I explained to you in this particular session, and this is having a little weightage on it. So they can ask you for 5 marks regarding about the research process in small business and a non-profit organization. So what are the research methods adopted, or what are how the research can be done in small business and non-profit organization for 5 marks, and the main important aspect is the research process can be asked for 10 to 15 marks. So it has a weightage on this particular topics. So go through these particular topics and surely you will be able to answer it in the examination scoring good marks. So I wish you all the best. Thank you, students. Take care. Have a nice day.